Patrick Pitch from the Carlton Footy Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
James Walker here from the Brisbane Lions.
Jason Johannesson from the Western Bulldogs.
Luke Parker here from the Sydney Swans.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Max Shaw and Melbourne Football Club.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Hello, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well. Just a couple of weeks left to go in your fantasy footy season. And here at the Coaches Panel, we're going to help you with your salary cap side, your draft league, your daily fantasy of SuperCoach DreamTeam, AFLFantasy, everything you love to talk about fantasy footy. That is what we're here to do at the Coaches Panel. Joining me in the studio, I've got the Fox. Hello, mate.
Hello, MJ. How are you? How are your trades going? Can you count them on...
One hand?
One hand?
Yeah, you probably should. The good news for you, though, is if you've been checking out at the Coaches Panel social media, either on Facebook or Twitter, there's been a very up and about Fox lately because one Thomas Lynch from the Richmond Football Club, pretty much a month ago, you sat on this podcast and said, buy low, 260,000 super coaches, get on Thomas. And, mate.
And I did.
You did. And what is he up at, like 380 now and averaging like 90 over the past month or so?
Yeah, I had to field both Westy and Lynch this week.
Have you got Dom Sheed?
No,
you're a traitor to yourself.
No.
You're a traitor to yourself and the Coaches Panel.
12%. I'm not one of those 12%.
You're a liar to everybody.
I'm watching the percentage on him.
I got Ben on the line. Hello, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'd just like to say with Foxy's Tom Lynch decision, you know what? He bought pretty damn low, and it's worked out very, very well for him. It's been a sensational buy, and that's exactly what we talk about almost on a weekly basis. You don't want to buy these guys at the peak, but so I'm not suggesting bring in Tom Lynch now, but 4 or 5 weeks ago, the risk to reward ratio was heavily favourable.
Yep, no, it certainly is. And here at the Coaches Panel, we're going to try to help you with just a handful of weeks in your fantasy footy season. There's a number of big questions that the Patreon army have thrown out to us. We want to encourage you to join the Patreon. You can do that at Coaches Panel. Just search the Patreon or go to patreon.com/Coaches Panel. Plenty of rewards, plenty of tiers. We'd love your support over these next couple of weeks heading towards the end of the 2019 fantasy footy season. There's some big questions, though, as we approach these final few weeks. Some maybe feel more pressing than others, but I want to spend some time around them. And Benny, maybe I'll throw this first question or kind of thought process out to you, is that probably one of the best midfielders we've had all year across all of the formats of the game has been Josh Kelly. Now, he's missed a fair few games through injury early on in the year. Then, again, he's currently on an injury hiatus at the moment. According to the latest injury reports at afl.com.au, he's 2 weeks away, which means, Benny, he's got 3 games potentially available for us. That's against the Hawks, the Dogs, and a pretty tasty matchup for the final round 23 against the Gold Coast Suns. I guess, Ben, my question is this. Is it worth still considering or holding or planning to trade in Josh Kelly? Because at least 2 of those final 3, if not all of those final 3, look tasty opportunities to bring in a unique Josh Kelly. Is it worth saving or planning to trade in Josh Kelly off this latest injury run?
Yeah, well, let's break this question down a little bit. Firstly, I'm always concerned, a little bit trepidatious about making plans in fantasy sports because we know one injury can really derail anything. But if everything goes to plan and 2 weeks from now we've following the same plan that we have right now, Josh Kelly is highly desirable, MJ. So for a number of reasons. Firstly, ownership percentage has decreased as it should. So I'm looking at his Dream Team ownership percentage, and that's at 8%. And I'd be willing to wager that a large percentage of those teams are probably inactive at the moment or don't have trades left, which, you know, means they're highly likely to be uncompetitive at this stage. So if you own Josh Kelly for the last 3 weeks and you're either fighting for a league victory or you're fighting for the top overall position, I'm suggesting that almost no one else has him. And that in and of itself is very, very exciting. When we add in the fact that Josh Kelly in Dream Team has gone under 100 just once, and that was due to an injury sustained in the round 16 match against Brisbane. That's pretty surreal, really. No one since. I think Dane Swan might have done it one year where he only had one score under 100. In SuperCoach, it's been much the same. So his lowest score was against Fremantle in round 5, going at 97. He's averaged 120 in SuperCoach as well. So we're looking at a guy who has huge upside. His top score in Dream Team is 148. Top score SuperCoach, 154. He's gone over 130 on 3 different occasions in Dream Team and over 120 on 6. And very similar in SuperCoach. So really, you're looking at a guy that you're thinking, for those last 3 weeks, not only is he going to be uber unique, but you can potentially be having the best captaincy score come round 23 after 2 weeks in the system, back after his hamstring issues against the Gold Coast Suns. So that round 23 fixture being grand final weekend, Jay, that's pretty damn exciting.
It is, and I suppose, Fox, the other thing that becomes probably the unspoken variable about acquiring or desiring to get a Josh Kelly probably comes down to 2 things, but probably the most difficult for people would be maybe not even having the trade to get to him. That might be attainable for some. It's how the heck do you generate the cash? Because pretty much, unless you're trading out a Brodie Grundy, for example, you're going to have to do something extra to be able to afford to get him in. Yeah, that's going to be the difficult scenario for coaches too.
It'd be probably a slide across from Nat Fife or something. I actually like the move. I reckon it's a game-breaking move in SuperCoach. He missed round 7 and he came back with a 154, and that's the same team he's coming back against, the Hawks.
Yeah.
And then he went on a run. He went 154, 131, 148, 138. So massive numbers. At that time, he was at a huge. Well, he was up about 660k.
Yeah.
Then 614 at the moment. So I like the move. I reckon it's unique, like you said, unique and game breaking. It probably might just go on to win you that premiership.
Is it worth Benny spending, in the more limited trade formats of the game? A lot of coaches, if you're not down to a handful of trades left, you're probably being too conservative, or you've nailed everything, from your starting squad to your upgrade moves and dodged a fair few injury things. It probably will cost you 2 trades to get there. More than likely, there may be some that have, a little bit of cash sitting in the kit bag to go, but is it worth the 2 trades to get him in? Assuming he's cherry ripe, he's fit. We have seen GWS been a little bit uber conservative with injuries coming back, except #Cogs. Is it worth the 2 trades to get him for those 3 weeks?
Well, let me throw this question back to you, MJ, but let me add a little bit more spice to it. Is it worth using your final 2 trades to bring him in and then holding the fort for the last 3 weeks with no available moves?
I guess it depends on your priority and where everything is, but yeah. It would depend on, are you upgrading from an existing... If you were, for example, going from a Gus Brayshaw, every day of the week I'm doing that, because whatever you might potentially lose in an injury or 1 or 2 donuts... what are you going to get from Gus Brayshaw? Again, I don't want to feel like picking on Gus because he's a great dude, but on current average, what are you going to get? 180 to 20 points over that 3-week period of time. You'll get that in a game and a half from Josh Kelly. So, and that's before he even gets to Gold Coast. So, yeah, I'd do that trade.
Yeah, and that's discounting the captaincy as well. So I think that's like the really interesting part of all this is that you can double up on his scores over you could do it over the last 3 weeks, but specifically that round 23 game, if you're thinking there's a very good chance that he might be the top scorer of the round, that's an extremely desirable unique.
Yeah, look, and I think that's the thing is we do want to talk about some unique guys that maybe aren't getting too much love a little bit later on in the episode, but sometimes we get, Fox, a little too overly crazy, and we do talk about having a point of difference in your side, and it's important to have that because without it, there's nothing to separate you from the pack, and so you do need something in terms of ownership or a strategy to move. Sometimes we get a little bit too cute with our uniques and do it for the sake of it. And then there's a unique opportunity like bringing in the Josh Kelly or taking on a player that can really set your season apart in these final 5 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, it's a unique move and a game-breaking move. Take it on.
Yep, I like it. All right, there we go. There's some thoughts about that. Let's look at the other end because that's really a coaching move for somebody who's still, wanting to do something to get their best rank possible, trying to do something different in their league matchups to be able to take home that Premiership Cup. Let's kind of look at the complete opposite reverse of that. Somebody who just knows their 2019 fantasy footy season is actually gone and they need to do something over these next few weeks. What would be some advice, Fox? For someone whose season is done, not just all but done, but is actually done, what could they do over these final 5 weeks to give them some sort of learning or benefit or opportunity moving forward?
It almost depends how done it is. Like if you've done and no trades, all you can do is shift your players.
Well, that's true. Well, then you do get some options there. You could, go funky with your captaincy options, couldn't you? Or play around a little bit there.
Pretty hard to go against a guy like Brody Grundy at the moment.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
No reason to read the Coel Kings at the moment, is it? Let's put the C on Brody. It's pretty simple, but
there's if you got trades, like it's different.
Okay, so what do you do if you got a couple of trades, but your year's done, your ranking, you're like, I'm shot from going for it anyway. Who cares now? I'm not going to
roll the dice on a player you like.
Okay,
like who could you roll the dice on? A player like Hunter Clark. You might roll the dice on him in the back line. The second Lynch.
The other Tom.
The other Lynch.
The Adelaide Tom.
Yeah, the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you in the forwards.
Okay, as our friends at the Draft Doctors refer to him as good personality, Tom, I believe.
Oh, fair enough.
So,
yeah, just have fun.
Yeah, all right. What about?
You wouldn't have many trades anyway.
No, most people are down to a handful, if not considerably less than that. All right.
It's all about having fun.
It is all about having fun. What about for you, Benny? Is there some advice you got for someone whose fantasy season is done?
Well, I'm not sure if you've seen yet, MJ, but I have hoisted the white flag at Team Benny FC. So the tiers have been coming down as well. So that's probably my advice. A bit of a depressive state and get ready for the 2020 season. But, it hasn't been all good here. I will say that if you want a real answer right now, it's possibly good to just maybe sort of think a little bit ahead towards 2020, and I would be maybe looking at a couple of the rookies coming through. I was quite intrigued by the game of Francis Watson on the weekend.
Yeah,
I
like
wonder
that.
if he can maybe get some more opportunities. So maybe looking at someone like a Dersma and thinking, hey, could he really take the next step? So one of these guys that's had a really strong debut season. Obviously, Sam Walsh being the obvious one. But, one of these guys can take the next step. Hey, guess what? This time last year, I was just looking at Jack Billings. This time last year, no one wanted to talk about Jack Billings. But, Jack Billings, Alex Witherden could be the next Jack Billings. Angus Brayshaw could be the next Jack Billings. So you got to have a little bit of a look at these guys and see if you can just detect a hint of difference. It's probably going to be perpetuated a little bit more in the preseason, but you can do that, or you can be like me and just be quite sad.
And just go full emo about it, which is where Benny has chosen to reside himself for these final 5 weeks. All right, we talked a little bit about the GWS Giants just a moment ago. We talked specifically around someone like a Josh Kelly and the opportunities that may present themselves for us with getting one of, if not the best midfielder of the year in terms of what he can score at a low ownership, albeit a pretty high price. let's turn our attention for a minute to one of his teammates in Lachie Whitfield. Has come back from injury the past couple of weeks, continuing on with just rolling ton after ton. I guess my question, and maybe Ben, I'll pose it to you first, is probably 5 or 6 weeks ago, maybe more so than 2 months ago, Rids made this famous statement, which is especially famous for him, was around Lachie Whitfield is as close to a must-have as you can get. We don't like saying must-have, but he was as close to you could get. He then got injured, and coaches that went against him over that kind of period of time, great. But with now 5 weeks to go, and we've talked about a relatively friendly fixture for GWS over the next 4 or 5 weeks, is Lachie Whitfield still someone we can try to take on? Or is it now still hedge your bets, get him in, not many defenders can go with him? Is Lachie Whitfield someone we can take on? Or do we need to hedge our bets and protect and bring him in if we don't have him yet?
Well, I sort of think of Lachie Whitfield in the same ballpark to Josh Kelly this year.
Right.
So his ownership percentage at the moment is actually in 26% of teams, which kind of surprises me a little bit. And I do wonder how many of those teams have either bought him in the last couple of weeks or how many have stopped playing.
Right.
I would say active teams he would be in a much lower percentage. But this is a guy that has now shown you a couple of weeks post-injury. He's shown you that he's still producing, and that is the one problem that we didn't really discuss too much with Josh Kelly, is that we're not going to actually have seen him play over the leading up until that 3-week period. So the potential for a re-injury, as we all know, initially is much higher than after a couple of games. So all a couple of factors that you're going to take into it, but I really, really like that last 3 weeks, MJ. So Hawthorn, the Bulldogs, and the Gold Coast Suns, round 23, another opportunity for a very exciting captain.
All right, for the reference, because we haven't mentioned the other couple of weeks, this week they come up against next week, they come up against the Swans. This week they come up against Port. So, look, Sutcliffe might, it's not going to impact too much. Sutcliffe might be the tagger, but to be fair to Sutty, he's not been the greatest shutdown player at this point in time. And then Sydney do have a couple of decent run with players through there that you'd expect someone like a Clark or a Hewitt may choose to play the negating role through there. What about for you, Fox? Are you in a similar vein where you think you might have a crack at taking him on, or do you think...
It's tough, isn't it?
You feel nervous every week going up against him. I understand that.
It's really tough. You take him on at your peril,
okay,
pretty much. But it's not impossible.
No.
You just got to look deep. And that there is a couple of guys that I might, and you might be surprised at some of their names.
Okay.
Especially one.
Have you got a list for me now, have you?
I've got one main guy that I think, I wouldn't do it.
Like you wouldn't bring in Justin Westhoff, or...
Like I wouldn't bring in Tom Lynch.
Okay, yeah.
But, yeah, this guy actually plays for Richmond.
Of course he does. Go on.
He would be the only guy. Now...
So hang on, just to be clear, before you drop a name, you're saying it's difficult to go against Lachie Whitfield.
It's almost impossible.
But if you wanted to...
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible to you, okay.
Yep.
But if you were going to, of all the players in fantasy footy, there's one guy, you wouldn't do it, but if someone was, this is the bloke you're about to recommend.
There's conditions here. You have to own the main ones.
You have to have the main ones. You have to be a Tiger supporter.
No, Lloyd would be the perfect one. But
yeah, sure.
I would presume most people have got, the Lloyds and Lairds.
Sure.
We're taking a cut under that.
Yep.
Quite a bit under that.
Yeah. Here we go.
Right. This guy is 466K.
In which format?
SuperCoach.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's all you talk about. That's fine.
Right. Let's just go back. This is a hard.
Yeah, you're not selling.
Not many people
fine.
Could sell this, but I'm
you're
going to try.
Buckle in, everyone.
See, Lachie Whitfield, 4 of his last 7, he's tonned up.
That he's played.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
okay,
it's not all riches.
Aren't 2 of those injury affected games?
There might have been a little.
Okay,
bit.
sure. Play on.
This guy, the last 7 times on the MCG, these are his scores. 112, this is SuperCoach, 142, 102, 142. He likes those twos. 93, 104, and 111.
I didn't realise Matt Richardson was available this year.
It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
They are impressive numbers.
Well, they're impressive figures. This is on the MCG.
Yes.
Okay, we're getting that right. That's the fixture.
Tiger, defender,
This guy plays on the MCG every match from now until the
grand final.
Yeah, probably.
We'll turn it up.
And he he plays his 200th game this week, so he's going to be up and about. This guy nearly won the Norm Smith medal.
He should have
2 weeks ago.
2 years ago.
Arguably,
how many times did you watch that grand final?
Arguably, he should have. And I think everyone's guessed it. Hooley, Basher Hooley.
The Bash, yes.
I think he'd be the only guy
in SuperCoach that you'd take on.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't have the other, like
we're
going down. We're not. I would just say Lloyd would match him.
Yeah. Look,
but we're picking some.
We're going for. Oh no, I love it. You've given me a name, and not many people give names for a player, so I like it, mate.
MCG. And
MCG.
The last time I named a Tiger was Tom Lynch, and that was a bit.
Also, the week after you mentioned Westhoff, he got dropped. So your track record's 1-1.
Tiger players,
at the moment,
haven't let me down.
All right, fair enough too. Well, you've given me a bit of your. Go, Benny.
I just checked MJ in Lachie Whitfield's 9 non-injury affected games in Dream Team. He averaged just a tick under 130 points per game.
Shivers.
That's why I kind of consider him. I know we're going through the defenders because that's what he's categorised as, but I definitely consider him to be of a similar ilk to Josh Kelly, and you are buying a lot cheaper, and the injury risk from my perspective is probably a little bit reduced just because he's had those 2 games already.
Yeah.
But having said that, like we said, he's in a lot more teams, so maybe he's a little bit less unique.
All right, fair enough. Well, look, like I said, I wanted a name. You gave me a name.
I agree with Benny.
No.
But you wanted a name?
I did.
I gave you a
name. I appreciate that because there is going to be a coach that's going, look, either for budgetary reasons or just because they want to do something different, is going to try to take him on. So absolutely, I applaud anyone's bravery around that.
You would be a brave man.
It would be a brave person. If that's you, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear how it goes for you the next 5 weeks.
Like I said earlier, take him on at your peril.
Right, fair enough. Well, let's talk a little bit. You've given us a bit of a unique name there, a guy that's been in form in patches in 2019 in Basher Hooley, but that we have these uniques at the end of the year, and we've talked about them in this episode and over other ones where you need that thing that's going to set your side apart. Otherwise, you're not going to make any movement from the pack. The negative of getting some uniques is simply when they go bad, it really only hurts a small percentage of the competition as opposed to a guy with large ownership hurting a large percentage of the population. Just look at Stephen Cornelio owners 7 days ago. But what I want to do, and we talked about a few unique guys last week on the podcast, I want to get from each of you, give me a unique guy that you're pretty keen on, but doesn't seem to be getting really any love at the moment. Look, for whatever reason, but a unique option that you think, there's something here about this bloke, but others aren't on. Who have you got for me, Benny? Because I've got a name, but I want to save him for a little bit. But who have you got for me, Benny?
Well, I haven't really thrown down the gauntlet with regards to how unique we're talking, but someone that's really exciting me at the moment who I would love to own in my team is Toby Green.
Ooh, nice. So,
yeah, he's sitting at 11% of teams in Dream Team at the moment. But I think, there's a case to be made that he's almost the most desirable forward outside of, say, Josh Dunkley. In the run home. So again, another GWS player with those big 3 weeks, but he has been able to take a more midfield-centric role without the likes of Josh Kelly and Cornelio clogging up the midfield minutes. So, and he's obviously been super dominant the last 2 weeks. Richmond, of course, give away a lot of high scores, but he really did take them to town with 144 points. backed it up against the Pies in a good match for him with 115. So, he's someone that I just look at and I think he's the type of guy that could quite easily go on 110, 120 run in the run home that isn't necessarily owned by a heap of people, comes with injury risk, but
Sure.
is also at like a reasonable price at the moment. 600K is not too much. He's someone who I think the time is right. The time was 2 weeks ago, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
But, he's a very exciting proposition.
I like it. I definitely like that pick. What about for you, Fox? Do you need a
All
bit
right.
more time before you finish your name?
No,
out?
I got a few names here.
By the way, Benny, is that for all formats too, or any specifically around Toby?
So I was thinking specifically for AFL Fantasy and Real Dream Team, but I will look at his SuperCoach numbers while Fox gets on with it.
All
I'll
right.
give you a little bit of a comment later on.
All right, sure. All right, Foxy, who you got for me?
All right. Well, guys, I'd like to own.
Here we go.
I'd like to own Dom Sheed, but he's 12.2%, so he's not unique enough.
No, he's not.
So, and I set this task at being 500 under 532k.
Yep.
Specifically.
Okay, in SuperCoach. Yep.
And under 5%.
Okay.
So
I
I went a little bit
parameters.
above what you asked.
Sure.
And put another couple of rules, and then I went looking.
Great. And then you put the other preference where there had to be a tiger to be able to get there.
No
in the-
tigers.
Okay.
No, there might be there might be one that lives in the jungle, but there's no
All right.
tigers.
All right, what do you got for me, mate?
All right. Well, do you want to start with the least unique?
Sure.
5%.
Okay.
Elliot Yeo.
Oh, yeah, nice.
He's got the same schedule as Dom Sheet.
Yes. Had to mention it.
Now he's coming off 116 and 114. So
He got pretty tagged in the first half against Gussie Brayshaw on the weekend too.
Yeah, I think they'll go to Gaff though
Yes.
in the next few games.
Mm-hmm.
He's got North, Carlton and Adelaide. Can't get much easier than that.
No.
Richmond and Hawthorn on the way home, so he's got a great, so he's got
Nice run.
a very nice, and he is SuperCoach. He is a SuperCoach player. He loves the tackle.
Okay.
He's had some earlier in the year. He had big numbers in tackles.
Yeah, I think even on the weekend he had like 11 as well. So
yeah, he's racked up more than
loves
that.
a hug, that man.
Yeah, so he'd be the one at 5%.
Okay.
Just go a little bit less. I do like Mitch Duncan.
Nice.
Yeah, he likes going on stretches.
He does.
Of
Of scoring, not stretchers as in injured. Yes.
Don't put that on him.
No, but if it does, you said it, Fox. It's not me.
From round 6 to 11, he stretched out 6 tons
Nice.
in that period, consecutive. At the moment, he's on a stretch of 2, and he has Sydney, Freo, North, Brisbane, and Carlton.
Nice.
500k. He hasn't really hit the ceiling. Really, he hasn't really had that.
Well, it's
ceiling.
hard when you've got likes of
He's
Kelly
had
and
144,
Danger.
but
Yeah.
but he hasn't really got that.
That's
ceiling.
okay.
But
He's low
the
ownership.
3.3%. That's I thought that was all right.
No, you're ticking the boxes for me, Fox, so far.
And the last one, point. I like the points. I like it when you've got someone that's got 0.7%.
Less than a percentage in SuperCoach.
Yeah, and the 1533 owners. That's total in SuperCoach. Now, there's probably no one that owns him in Bendigo and Ballarat combined.
All right,
That's
fair
how
enough.
unique
All right.
this guy is.
Oh, good.
And he still comes in at that under the 532. He's 529. Okay. Jared Lyons. Wouldn't you like that ride
Oh, at the
on
moment,
the way home?
you'd feel nervous every step of the way, but
He's
this
had
past month it's been good.
three over 130 in his last 4.
Oh, it's so good, isn't
3.
it? Everyone's going to Lachie Neal, then Zork's getting a little bit of attention. Jared's just having an absolute fun bags wheel
And his
time.
last one, 165 against North Melbourne. A contest like you'd think that North are a pretty contested sort of a team there. He'd be my very unique
All right.
guy.
I like that. You got that SuperCoach stat there for Toby Green for me, Benny, before I tell you mine?
Yeah, mate. He a little bit less interest in Toby Green than SuperCoach. He's averaging 85 points. Yeah, a little bit worse. Can I just butt in just before you reveal
Sure.
your bloke? Because He's got a great name, but in under 3% of teams is another GWS giant who at one stage was in the top 5 highest priced defenders. He's well known as a former Collingwood footballer, and he's at his cheapest price of the season right now, coming off 100 with that fantastic GWS draw. That's Heath Shaw. I really like him in, like I said, under 3% of teams in Dream Team. So another unique there for you.
Milestone match this week, I believe 300 games for Heath Shaw, and you'd expect they'd want to get the ball in the hands of the young man as well. So I do like that call. My one, I don't mind. It's more a Dream Team and a fantasy move.
Can
but
we get an intro? Have you got?
You want me to do the intro?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do my best Fox on this for you. Okay. It's more a Dream Team and a fantasy move, but there's some merit there in SuperCoach. Averaging across all the formats around about 5%, coming off the back in Dream Team and fantasy of a score of 124 and 106, while in SuperCoach, he's coming off the back of a score of a 119 and a 104. His next 3 weeks are against Richmond, the Gold Coast Suns, and Melbourne. In terms of midfielders, that's as juicy a 3-week fixture analysis as you can get. Even Adelaide the week after at Adelaide Oval, we've seen players that can run, spread, and get into space, cut up the Crows' midfield. And my friend, this player does that in spades. His name, Stelios Sidebottom. My friend, I'm big on getting Steele into your side if you can. If you want a unique, you want to go with a ripping fixture, I'm all over Steele Sidebottom. And Patreons already know that. So there's some of the advantage of becoming a part of the Patreon army. You get to find some inside access ahead of everybody else. But look, I'm a big fan of what Steele can do. I think he's got the ceiling about him. Everyone's still spending all their time on Treloar or Pendlebury. Sidey's the one for me. So that's who I'm going for.
Good call. I'm surprised I missed that one.
Oh, well, I didn't put the parameters of, had to be a tiger.
Yeah,
so
no, good call.
No, that's fine. All right, fair enough. Hey, last couple of things before we do get to some of our Patreon questions. I'm curious, what's the better use of a trade? I want to spend some time talking about best uses of trades in these final 5 weeks. Benny, what is a better use of our trade? Is it a better use to get rid of a underperforming player that, we paid a premium for and they're not delivering? So a Sicily who's playing more of a tall than an intercept role at the moment, or the guys that have been getting a fair bit of flack across the year, the Brayshaws and the Withertons. Is it better to use a trade on that, or is it better to use it on a guy that's battling injury or no certainty to play, such as, I guess, a Fife or a Hearn, who are both listed as tests, both missed last week, and the clubs would certainly, more West Coast than Fremantle, they've got the luxury of giving Hearn an extra week or two to be right for finals. But what's a better use of a trade for a coach? Is it get rid of that underperforming premium, or is it fix up that injury concern you might have?
Well, I think obviously it's really dependent on your bench cover at the moment. So if you get really strong bench cover, it makes life a hell of a lot easier. So my general initial thought was damage limitation. Are we copying a 0? If we're copying a 0, then we're going to be trading. So that's where you're probably leaning more towards a guy like Shannon Hearn or a Nat Fife, where they aren't going to be producing a score. But under the scenario that everything is tickety-boo, you are looking to upgrade the Brayshaws, the Withertons, with those last couple of luxury trades, really making it look pretty. That's the final strokes on the picture, I think. We know with Brayshaw, he played a tagging role on the weekend. He's just having a dog of a year. It seems very, very unlikely that there's going to be any turnaround this season.
Yeah.
Similar thoughts for Witherton. He just sort of hasn't been able to put together the degree of form, a little bit less so than Brayshaw, but obviously struggled with his form. So given that there's a high degree of confidence that those two aren't going to turn it around, you potentially start to think, well, what is the upgrade? So you could get Witherden to Lachie Whitfield, for instance. That might be a 40 to 50 point upgrade in a week. And if you can do that in 2 trades, then that's an excellent trade.
Yeah,
but
right.
if you could possibly, go to let's say, someone who's a little bit more realistic for most of the competition might be let me get a name here. Let's say a Nick Newman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone averaging about 90. Well, then you might only be putting 20 points on it. I would say possibly hold that trade with the expectation that injuries will hit you, or with the thought process that, look, over the next 5 weeks, 20 points is only 100 points worth, and that's not really what a trade should be worth. And I might be able to get that through a different upgrade, or alternatively, a big downgrade to facilitate the Lachie Whitfield trade. So you've got all these different aspects you're looking at, but for a lot of teams at the moment, a lot of friends that I'm speaking to, MJ, it really is damage limitation and trying to avoid those zeros.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Ben mentioned an interesting thing there, Fox. I'm keen on your take. He said this phrase, luxury trade. When do we get to that point of time where our trades become luxury trades? Like, what does that quantify for us? I know everybody's different with their priorities and focuses there, but we go, if you've got the luxury trade, what does that? Does that mean your side's complete? What is a luxury trade at this point in time of the year?
Yeah, well, you got points on the ground and you got good cover.
Okay,
then that would be
perfect.
It. Yeah, that would be it.
All right, no, perfect summary of that. I really like that.
Just about Brayshaw, is he injured, or because he's the elephant in the room for what guys you're wanting to knock him out of your team. He's the name that keeps bringing up.
Yeah, he is.
Witherton to a lesser extent.
Yeah, but Gus is the one in
Gus.
Dream Team and Fantasy, especially not as prevalent in SuperCoach, but certainly there.
Is he injured? Is he just?
I hope so.
Not enjoying.
I hope that's the explanation.
Not enjoying his footy as much, or
he's not been played in the same role as he was last year. Melbourne, probably of all teams, have been impacted the most in terms of game style by the 6-6-6. In terms of they used to like to start off with some extras behind the ball at centre bounces, and that certainly helped with their structures and setup and the way they linked up. And they had a little bit more dare about them too. So I think that's hurt. But he's just not getting played in the role. Like, I would seriously go and buy him in a keeper league at the moment. Like, he's such a talented kid that you just know it's a matter of time till he comes good. He might not go back to as good as he did last year, but you should be able to pay for him. And there's no reason why he's not a 100 average midfielder for the rest of his career.
So we don't foresee him turning it around in the immediate.
Well, he's not
future.
getting the role. Like, at what point? He's had 2 games in the past 3 months. He started the year with the role. He got 2 games or a game and a half with that role, and they've just not shown it. Like, if I was in Melbourne's shoes, well, I wouldn't say word tanking. I would happily give people opportunities in roles.
Yeah, shouldn't they be
to do
experimenting now?
Yes, they should be. Yes.
So if they did,
because it's a good draft pick.
Yeah.
Get that bottom 6 fixture max up in terms
surely the coach wakes up one morning and just has a
they're missing some forward targets. The game style set, they'll be fine. I wouldn't get Gus this year, but he'd be fine. Your take on him, Benny?
Yeah, he's representative of Melbourne's disastrous season.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's a good summary.
So that's it. He did tag on the weekend. He did a very good job actually on Elliot Yeo. His effort was high. I mean, he really was working hard. So don't really think it's an effort thing. I think he probably is a little bit sore.
Yeah.
But the Melbourne game style just hasn't been there. It's I think they're probably trying out a few new things. As you two alluded to, and it's just been a difficult year. I don't think there's going to be much of a change this year, but I agree with your sentiments, MJ. I think keeper league time, his value's a little bit low. You can potentially trade with someone who might have different circumstances to you, so might be in a premiership mode or might not value Brayshaw as highly as what they perhaps should, or have just really not enjoyed his last 12 months and want to get rid of him. And you might be able to work a deal off someone like that. So now is the time for a lot of people to bring in a guy that potentially, he's only 23,
Yeah.
potentially has another 5, 6, 7 years of 100-plus footy left in him.
No, it's right. And you mentioned that great point about keeper leagues, and we don't talk about our stuff too often, but Ben and I made a transaction around Gussie Brayshaw. I shipped him off this week because I'm having a crack at a premiership, and so it got me a couple of things that helps me on field. Happy days, helps Benny long term. So, look, you're right. If you're out of contention in keeper leagues, and we did a great piece of content, you can go and check out last week's episode. If you're in contention or out of contention, players to offload now and players to consider bringing in now. Gus, in my mind, is someone I'd certainly be still looking to bring into a keeper league. I know some have been absolutely burned hardcore by him this year, but and the smell of Gus is running deep in their veins. But look, I'd still be looking to bring him in.
Could he possibly end up at Fremantle next year?
Look, he could.
Both his brothers are over there.
Yeah,
Very
anything's possible in
family.
trade period.
Very, very close.
They do.
Family.
They love their Christmas Day run.
Yeah.
So, look, anything's possible. But look, 12 months ago,
he nearly won a Brownlow as a 22-year-old.
I know. 12 months ago, he was one of the most informed midfielders of the competition. But also, 12 months ago, everyone was saying the demise of Scott Pendlebury was coming, and yet he's put together a pretty stunning year. And there was revelations early this year that, mate, I was playing sore, I was injured, I was struggling to get up week in, week out. Even though he was able to play and perform at a relatively decent level, wasn't the best that he'd hoped. Let's hope that that's what it is for Gus, that, battling a little bit through the year, but both he and the D's are going to turn around next year, because he would be an absolute bargain buy next year. In terms of salary caps, in terms of drafts, where you get him, there's so much upside. Chances are he may even appear in the 50 most relevant next year. Just letting you know about 8 months out, just given how much potential is in there. Hey, but before we
Sorry, mate, can I just cut you off?
That's fine.
The stuff that we apply sometimes to fantasy actually can sometimes apply to footy clubs as well. So, we go on about this buy low, sell high. I think if Melbourne was looking to trade someone like Brayshaw right now, you are going to get a lesser of a deal. So I just question how valid some of those rumours are at the moment, because I really think you don't want to be trading him right now. He's come off an absolutely dismal season. Whatever's happening has happened for a reason. But I firmly believe that we're going to see Angus Brayshaw in a Melbourne jersey next year and playing much better footy.
Yeah, let's hope so. He's an absolute ripper of a player and a ripper of a human being as well, which is fair enough. Before we get to the Patreon questions, there's one more thing I'd like to pose, and that is, these final 5 weeks are the make and break times of the year. I suppose you could say that over the past kind of 16, 17 weeks as well. But there's a couple of players that might be able to, if we're smart, if we're lucky, if we can read the tea leaves correctly, because I reckon there's a couple of players, whether they be highly owned or popular options, that may have some bad scores on the way. Now, that could be something because their role is getting tweaked at the moment. They're carrying a pretty substantial injury, and it seems to be impacting them. Maybe there's a heavy tag, or the fixture matchups don't look good over these next couple of weeks. Are there any guys that both of you are seeing, look, be careful, there could be something here that could trip us up if we're not careful? Benny, is there anything that you potentially could see beyond the horizon that are highly owned guys that people are probably just backing in, they're going to be a premium over these 5 weeks, but there are some things building that maybe they're not going to be?
Well, there's a fairly obvious one this week. His name is Rowan Marshall. He plays for the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at a chart about rucks on average, the average scoring ruck against the Western Bulldogs, which is the easiest team to score points against in the ruck category this season, they're averaging 100 points a game, MJ. So that is the easiest team to score against. The most difficult team to score against by quite a margin, predictably, MJ, is the Melbourne Football Club, and there's only 65 points a game on offer on average. So I'm suggesting it's going to be a difficult week for Rowan Marshall. And if you're looking to bring in someone who's in form at the moment, he's obviously He's been fantastic for a long time. I would be a little bit concerned in making the move this week.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And then, look, next week's the Crows as well, and Riley O'Brien is not the biggest slouch in the AFL at the moment, probably the most improved ruckman in the competition, and Grundy's taken his game to another level this year, no mistake about that. So, look, difficult matchup for Rowan over the next couple of weeks. I like that as a pickup too. Fox, some names there or some players that, because there's some big names that could trip us up if we get a bit of bad luck or aren't careful. Anyone you want to throw out?
I didn't have much with this question, so
Okay.
I'm just going to go by the fly.
Oh, it's my favourite. You're going full rids on me here.
Well, I would look at the taggers
Yes.
that are out there. Like the main taggers at the moment would be Clark, Steele.
Jack Steele, yep.
Yeah, Jackie Steele. Sutcliffe to an extent. Hewitt is sort of.
Yeah.
And we've got Hutchings and De Boer coming back in the next few weeks.
Yeah, Hutchings is 1 week away, so he could be back as early as round 20, which could be bad news for 1P Cripps. That would be the earliest he's back, and then De Boer, I think he's 2 or 3 weeks away, so round 21 could be, or round 20.
So I would throw those names that I've just mentioned into the mix and just see how many times teams come up against the what was it, six players.
5 weeks to go, including this week.
Yeah, so probably
Look,
just
Dylan
quickly,
Clark.
O'Meara would be he may
good
be one.
call.
That was this one out of the pulled that name out.
Well,
Is
round
that- would that be a good one
23,
to avoid?
Yeah, round 23 he has West Coast, so Hutchings would well and truly be back by then. At the week before that, looks good for him though, because he plays Gold Coast, so that looks good. But it's more the outside midfielders that score well against Gold Coast. And then this is touch and go, but this is where I think you've mentioned De Boer would be if he's back round 21, then he plays O'Meara. So two of the worst to get. And then North Melbourne, he's got, and then Brisbane Lions. So that's O'Meara's run.
There wouldn't be too many Supercoach teams without Fife or Cripps in it at the moment, but I wouldn't be wanting to get them in quickly either.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm a bit nervous about Patrick Cripps at the moment. While Carlton are certainly winning games, and that's great for the football club and for supporters of the club. Cripps is still not looking anywhere near 100% at the moment. He's always looking taped up to the wazoo, but more so than ever before, he's gone full Canelio with the amount of bannering that he's got around his body. And just looking at the stats, that Brisbane game in round 12 feels like the big one that stands out. Outside of that in Supercoach, these are his past 6 scores. Okay, so we'll count that in there though. In Supercoach, 73, 115, 78, the Monster, 194, 89, 116, 66. So it gets you to round 9. So really, one score that would scare you with Patrick Cripps, and that's it. Then you look again in the similar run through AFL Fantasy and Dream Team. 55, 94, missed a couple of games through injury. 67, that massive 151, then 63, 88, 45. One of Cripps' last 10 or 11 games has been over 120 in AFL Fantasy. And only one score over 100 in AFL Fantasy since round 9. Yeah. So I know some of those are tag games as well, but look, West Coast, if Hutchings is back, that's where he's going in to potentially maybe... he's not going to go and shut down a Kerno or a Murphy, and then Richmond St Kilda Geelong the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I'm all off.
Cripps is a warrior, isn't he?
Oh, look, incredible player, warrior, contested ball, but he just doesn't look anywhere near 100% himself. He should pull apart the Crows midfield at some stoppages, but it'll be with handballs, not with kicks and outside spread at the moment.
He took a hiding earlier in the year. I remember on one of our chats we were talking, and I think Ritz said, "Gee, he's getting, but he's not going to make the year."
Well, there was a really difficult 3-week period for him where he got tagged out of it by De Boer. It's not the first player that happened to this year. Got tagged out of it by Steele, and then got tagged out of it by Dylan Clark. So, look, the Crows don't really run a tagger, so that's good news for this week. But I certainly think someone like Marshall's a great one, O'Meara's a ripper, Cripps is another. Look at those fixture matchups. Look at the guys that are likely to get tags. If side seasons are done, they might put away some of these star players. Fife was another that you mentioned that's playing sore at the moment. I know every AFL player is playing sore at this point of the year.
There's no guarantee for this week.
He's a test, I believe.
That's no guarantee.
Is Fife. Same with Shannon Hearn. I think Hearn completed full training though on Tuesday, so that's a positive sign there. But that's Tuesday.
That was a rest. That wasn't a calf.
Yeah, no. Well, I think that might be. You've got some sources over there, Fox, or you just spreading a little bit of innuendo over there, mate. All right, fair enough. Hey,
might I just sorry, MJ.
No, you're cutting me off. It's fine.
Yeah, I know. Again, mate.
I love it.
Been too many times. The 4 most difficult teams to play against in no particular order from a dream team and fantasy perspective this year are the Brisbane Lions, the Port Adelaide Power, Geelong, and the GWS Giants. And GWS is significantly the most difficult team to play against, and that's even more pronounced when they're playing at home. So their final 2 matches at home are against the Swans and the Bulldogs. So I'd be pretty concerned about guys like, say, Isaac Heaney, Patrick Lipinski, Marcus Bontempelli, and even to a lesser degree, someone like a Jack McRae or a Josh Dunkley might struggle a little bit more than usual.
Yeah, you might get a 105 kind of thing out of them.
That's it. Yeah, they've been in some amazing form, but it's just mindful to keep those types of ideas at the forefront. Sometimes we're looking for names. We're talking about taggers, we're talking about difficult matchups, but sometimes purely you can look across the board and say, hey, GWS are playing at home. That is the most difficult fixture, probably in AFL footy, but definitely in fantasy footy this year. So avoid.
All right, fair enough. Thank you, man, for that. Let's jump into some of our Patreon questions. If you love what the Coaches Panel brings to your fantasy footy experience each and every single week, we'd love you to join the Patreon army at patreon.com/Coaches Panel. Plenty of rewards, exclusive content, and access to members of the Coaches Panel. We'd love you to join. They have submitted some questions. A ton of them we've already kind of answered and built some of the podcast around them, but we do have a couple of them. And Benny, we'll throw this first question over to you. It's a pretty simple one. I want to trade out to trade in Lachie Whitfield. It's going to cost me 2 trades, but I've got 4 left and a pretty much completed side. Which defender do I trade out to get Lachie Whitfield? Brodie Smith or James Sicily? They're both, for reference point, while you think about it, Brodie's worth 12k more. And Sicily is averaging a little bit more, but only by a handful. Obviously, Brodie had the big week last week that helped him out. But what would you be doing? Would you be getting rid of Brodie Smith or Sicily to bring in Whitfield, knowing the other stays and probably becomes D6?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I do like the Crows fixture. It's not too bad. So they got Carlton and the Saints over the next fortnight. Eagles and Collingwood's a little bit difficult, but they finished with the Bulldogs around 23. So there's probably like 3 fixtures out of the next 5 that are pretty reasonable.
Yep.
Hawthorn, on the other hand, have an absolute wretched draw. So they have the Lions, which are difficult. They play GWS. Gold Coast is an easier one. North is an easier one, but they finished with West Coast and round 23 away from home. So, look, it's flipping a coin a little bit. It's been a difficult time to own Sicily over the last sort of fortnight. He went forward. Now he's playing as sort of more of a key defender as Clarkson's looking to do a few new inventive things. He obviously had that great game against Collingwood, but that's the only good game.
That was on Mason Cox, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only good game he's had from a fantasy perspective for 5 weeks. And on top of that, Collingwood were wretched. I don't know if you can remember that game.
Yeah, I do.
They just kept on turning the ball over.
Just bombing it, yeah.
Yeah, so it feels like that was the outlier rather than anything predictive. So to be honest, I think I'd go with Sicily, which is a very surprising statement to make, but we're sitting right now 23rd of July 2019, and that is a decision I'm making.
All right.
Wow.
I like that one.
That's Benny's boy, Sicily.
Yeah, I like it. It broke his heart to do that, but I appreciate that.
Can we read anything in?
Yeah.
Into Brodie Smith wearing the different jumper?
Richie Douglas's one.
Yeah, like he went massive in that jumper.
He was awesome.
And then when he put his proper one on.
I've seen plenty of Crows fans rave on about what happened to Richard Douglas after halftime. He went missing. So it sums up some of the great supporters that I
drag him out
call
in
friends.
that jumper every week.
Well, if he plays like that at half forward on the number 26, sorry, Richie, you are done. Fair enough, too. Thank you, Luke, for that question. Matthew wants to know, this one's for you, Fox, exclusively for you.
Oh, okay.
Give me your prediction for the score of Tom Lynch in SuperCoach this week. Against the Pies, who have no key defenders. This is looking good for old Thomas. Give us
I'd like
your
to say what I think, but
go on, say it.
People might fall off their seats.
Go on then.
He's going to get higher than what he got last week because he's on the rise. There's a
prediction,
beautiful relationship there with Rewald.
Oh, here we go.
They're probably going to bring Caddy back.
Yep.
So the Tigers are going to run ramp.
Yes, they should.
They should.
And he's going to score.
Didn't he play well?
Yes, of course he did. What is he going to score, Fox?
Well, he's going to ton up at minimal.
By three-quarter time.
Minimum.
There's my prediction, by three-quarter time.
They play early. Just put the VC on him.
Over Brodie Grundy. Fox. I'm meant to be giving good advice.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Calm your farm, mate.
I figure a SuperCoach, like he's only really relevant, I'd say. SuperCoach.
Just a number, Fox.
120.
For that.
110 to 120.
For that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I hope it was worth it for you, mate. All right, last couple of questions before we wrap up the episode. You're an idiot, Fox. Josh wants to know, throw it over to you, Benny, an AFL fantasy question. What order does he upgrade these four names? Rosie in defence, Lysett in the ruck, Zeeble up forward, and Cripps in the midfield. What is his priority of trade order for you there, Benny?
Yeah, I think you got to go with Rosie first. Rookie season, tiring a little bit. Those other three guys are, mature ages, so he would be the first one to go for me. Then it's a bit of a horses for courses approach because I'm looking at Cripps right now, and he looks quite sore, so it's definitely a week by week basis with him. Lysett's been a little bit down the last few weeks, but can he bounce back? I'd have some confidence of him changing his performance. So his last couple of weeks, he's had a couple of 70s, but prior to that, he'd been on a big run. So
he's got GWS this week, yeah.
Yeah, which from a ruck perspective hasn't actually been too bad of a fixture. So I'm just looking at the
Essendon the week after,
totals.
Then Sydney the week after. Probably round 22 is when it gets difficult for Lysett against North Melbourne, and then he wraps up against the 7 ruckman team of Fremantle.
That's it. So yeah, I mean they're all pretty well mid of the pack in terms of difficulty. So look, you can make a case, I think, that you might want to hold on to Lysett. Depends on exactly how many trades you've got as well. So this is a list of 4 upgrades. I wish I had the opportunity to upgrade 4, but that's very exciting for the owner. So Rosie would be the first one, and then bit of a horses for courses approach. But I don't mind the idea of saying, hey, Patrick Cripps, I think you're playing sore, and I'm going to look elsewhere.
All right. Thank you, mate. Josh, hopefully that helps you. Last question. We'll throw it over to you, Fox. Kind of a two-pronged question. Tom Lynch is not an acceptable answer, just for the record.
I've got others.
Great. Good. Is it time to ditch Zeebles, especially since Higgins has come back into the side. Granted, it's been 1 week of data. We have seen him spend a lot more time forward. Is this the time to move Zeeble on? Has he done his job?
What?
AFL Fantasy for Shannon, he's saying.
I think it would. I think it is.
And then the second part of the question is Ed Curnow the real deal? We spent a bit of time talking about Carlton, mainly about Patrick Cripps, but over the past 5 weeks since David Teague's come in, there's been a number of key changes in Carlton, and probably the two most notable is bringing Mark Murphy and Ed Curnow, both who are playing roles outside of the midfield unit, both certainly well and truly a part of along with Cripps and Walsh, leading the midfield unit.
If it floats your boat, I would, but I definitely would. Yeah, I'd definitely go the Zeeble one.
Would you do a Zeeble to Curnow move? Because in AFL Fantasy, against Supercoaches and Dream Teamers, you don't have this luxury. He's a forward in that format as well.
Oh, okay.
Just so you know. You want to know the price tags, don't you?
Yeah, well, that would help.
It kind of makes life a little bit easier for Ed Curnow is $635,000, while it is about $30,000 cheaper than Zeeble. So you make money off that.
I'd have to see the whole team. I think you could. I think you could buy better for $635.
Okay, all right, there you go.
I'd have to see your team. I can't.
The beauty of it, because he's a part of the Patreon, you can drop that, Shannon, in some of the exclusive hidden behind the scenes access points. Fox would love to help you out through there, man. And
throw it out. We'll help you.
There you go. Appreciate it. Hey, mate, thank you for your work on the episode.
Have fun.
Yep, that's the key thing behind fantasy football. Have fun. Vice Captain Tom Lynch. #Fox. Appreciate that, mate. Betty, as always, a pleasure, man.
Thanks, Matt. I'm going to vice captain Brody Grundy this week.
Yeah, I think that's a much smarter move. Don't play it too cute. Just lock it in, my friend. It's the easiest way to play.
Have fun.
Good luck this week. I hope everything goes your way. You pull out an absolute couple of monster scores, like a few of the Coaches Panel fans have done recently, including winning format. AFL Fantasy is recently last week with the 2,700. Not a bad week from the old Dubsy hashtags. So nice work for that. Good luck this week. Hope everything goes your way. And from us here at the Coaches Panel, well, we'll chat to you soon.